Hi everyone, Nick Redicos of Nick's Seasonal Decor, and today you're watching me on Bowdabra, and we have some interesting projects planned for today. If you guys saw the post I made on my business page a little while ago, we're going to be designing a tree topper today using this device. So I have a whole selection of ribbons today that we can use it for. Keep in mind, when creating a tree topper, it does take a lot more ribbon than a traditional smaller bow for a wreath. So you're going to want to be able to find great quality ribbon at a great price. So right here we have a selection of Sam's Club ribbon. These come in 50-yard spools for $6.98. Not a bad price, especially since we're going to be using at least 10 or so yards, I figure, to create a large tree topper. So the technique is the same for a typical traditional bow. It's the same technique, it's just a little bit more difficult simply because you're creating it on such a larger scale, so there is less room for error. But as you guys come in, let me know where you guys are watching from. If you don't mind taking a second and sharing this video right now, I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully it'll inspire somebody to create a tree topper or design a bow. But what we're going to start off using is the Bowdabra wire. So this comes in a 100-yard spool that you can pick up from Bowdabra.com, and we will have the links in the comments section. And also, as you guys come in, we are giving away, or Bowdabra will be giving away, either your choice of scrunchy ribbon. It comes in silver, gold, and red, and this is fun to use for hair bows and stuff like that. That's not something that I make, so I'm going to reserve this for Sandy with Bowdabra. But you have your choice of either the scrunchy ribbon or a roll of 1.5 inch by 10 yard ribbon, a $9 value, so you can choose which one you want more. So what I'm going to start off doing is just cut off a section of the Bowdabra wire.
Welcome everyone. We have people from Texas, New York, Vermont.
Welcome. So give this video a like if you've made a bow before, but you may not be very good at it or you have a difficult time doing it. I'm here to show you guys that it's a lot easier than you might think. So I've just taken my ribbon, I've doubled it up, I've cut a pretty lengthy piece, that way we have some wiggle room in the end for us to be able to attach it. And I'm just going to place it underneath my Bowdabra in the middle slot right here. So now that we have that in place, our next step is going to actually be forming our tree topper. And there's many different ways to create tree toppers. There are single ribbon ones that we're going to be doing today using this 2.5 inch ribbon. There's also ways to do it with 2 ribbons, which we can show in a future video if that's something you're interested in doing. So I'm not going to measure it. I'll give you guys estimates as to how long I'm creating it, but ultimately it's up to you and how big you want it and what type of tree you're working with. There's all different types of trees. There's slim trees, pencil trees, large full trees, more branchy trees. It just depends on the size and the width. So I'm going to probably create the bows, the loops about 18 inches long, which sounds a little crazy, but we're going to have a pretty large bow once we do that. So I'm just going to take my ribbon and simply place it in my Bowdabra like that, creating tails, again, about 12 to 18 inches for a standard 6-foot tree. And this is going to be a one-sided bow. So if you want to replicate this to the opposing side and place it on the back side of your tree, you can. Most of my trees are viewed from a 3-point perspective, so I don't necessarily worry about designing on the back of my trees. So I'm just estimating it. Of course, if you want your loops perfectly even, all you have to do is really just pull them up and you can kind of measure them out. But I find the most important part when dealing with the Bowdabra with tree toppers is to make sure you really push your ribbon down. We're going to be creating a lot of loops today. We're not doing a light and airy bow, so we do want to make sure that we have force down below, or sometimes the loops can kind of become loose and wiggle, so we don't want that to happen. So again, as you guys come in, if you don't mind sharing this video, I greatly appreciate it. So now we've placed 2 loops. I'm going to come back in and create more loops. And what I'm doing in the middle is I'm twisting my ribbon so that the side we don't want showing is facing up towards us. We have our ugly side facing towards us, but then, and typically I twist my Bowdabra as I work in my ribbon, but then when we gather our loops together, what happens is the pretty side is revealed. And for certain ribbons, that's not really noticeable, but for the ribbons that we're teaching today, it is noticeable, so it makes it a little bit easier so you can see what I'm talking about when I say that. And we're going to repeat this process over and over again. And now that we have a couple loops on either side, if we wanted to kind of use our loops as a guideline for the size of them, you can certainly do it like that as well.
Ooh, we have Dee Dee saying hi from all the way from Brazil.
Brazil, welcome! I think it's fascinating that I'm in my shop in my basement right now in Massachusetts, and we have people watching from everywhere. That never seems to not amaze me. But I do want to take a second and thank my younger sister for filming me today. She got out of work probably about 15 minutes ago and decided she would help me film tonight. So kudos to her.
My pleasure. Ask any questions, guys, if you have any.
Yep, so if you have any questions at all, comment them down below, and my sister will ask, and I'll be sure to answer them to the best of my ability. I'd love to win. Awesome. So again, if you're interested in winning either the scrunchy ribbon or the wired ribbon, comment down below. So as I said before, for this particular bow, we do want to make sure we have a substantial amount of ribbon, and we are doing plenty of loops. This is going to be the highlight of our tree. So we do want to make sure that we're creating lots of loops so it doesn't look empty. And don't worry if they're going every which way at this point. As long as it's pretty much the same length, you don't have to worry about these at all.
Beth says sisters are the best. I agree, Beth.
They are awesome, that's for sure. I want to win. Awesome. Almost 500 viewers tonight. That's amazing. So as I said, I'm just repeating the pattern over and over again. Just running out some ribbon, because we are using a pretty significant amount. But also, you don't necessarily have to create as many loops, even though we are doing it in this case. If you are going to come back in with some decorative picks and ornaments and decorations and stems and whatnot, sometimes it's nice to use less ribbon, so you can come back in with more decorations and tuck them within your bow.
Anne asked, can you demonstrate how to make a 3-ribbon bow?
We certainly can. So let me know if you guys have any ideas as to what you'd like to see in the future for live videos. We always love to hear your feedback. We're here to help you. That's the whole point of these videos, is to help you learn how to create bows and the different techniques. So as I said before, there's different ways of doing tree toppers. Today we're doing the perfect tree topper for a beginner, especially if you're just starting out with your Bowdabra. This is the perfect bow to create. And then if you guys want to see in the future us doing 2-ribbon bows or 3-ribbon tree topper bows, let me know. You could also come back in with different textures like deco mesh tubing or burlap and kind of spruce up your bows a little bit more. The choice is ultimately up to you as to what you'd like to see in your bow.
Jessica wants to know if you have to use the Bowdabra or you can do it by hand.
So you can certainly do it by hand. With tree toppers, it's a lot more difficult, so I encourage you to use the Bowdabra in this case, especially if you have a difficult time maneuvering with bows.
Is there one type of ribbon that is better than another to make bows?
So the best ribbon for bow making is to make sure you use wired ribbon. Wired ribbon will hold its shape. And I'm covered in glitter from this ribbon right now. But wired ribbon holds its shape perfectly, and that's what you want when creating bows. So I figure at least 10 to 12 loops on either side. The more you have, the more dramatic and full your bow is going to be. Okay, so a couple more loops, you guys, and then I promise we will create other bows and fluff this so you guys can see how beautiful these bows turn out once you create them. So not difficult at all. The most challenging thing about making tree toppers, in my opinion, is trying to hold this much ribbon. As you can see, we have about 18 inches at least in width.
Carol asked, how do you pick the colors and prints and ribbons for a bow?
So that's a great question. Typically what I like to do is use less prints. My house is very formal, if you will. I kind of like designing with formal styles. So this tree topper would definitely fit my aesthetic for my own home. If you like things a little bit more whimsical and fun, you could use other styles. Just as an example, we have this 50-yard spool that came from Sam's Club. You can do the same exact process. This one's a little bit thicker, so it holds up a little bit better. So if this is more your style, by all means, you could use that. If you like more traditional, ribbons like this are perfect as well.
Where did you get that ribbon, Nick?
So these ribbons came from Sam's Club today. Wow, over 700 people. Thanks, you guys. Keep the shares coming.
Betty wants to know, how much ribbon do you need?
At minimum 10 yards, and that's honestly just for the loops itself. We haven't added tails to this, so typically for my trees, I don't like tails to be cascading down on either side, kind of like in a scallop-like motion. I like things to be kind of cut in pieces. So for this particular bow, I'm not going to be adding tails, but all you have to do is cut tails at least double, if not triple the length of your tree. That way you can maneuver them within the branches and have them a little bit more incorporated rather than just lying on top. So that should be enough loops. We have about 10 to 12 on either side at least. And now what we're going to do is give it one final push all the way down, make sure it's as close together as possible. Take my wires, feed them through, and pull really, really tight on the Bowdabra wire. This wire is quite rigid and it holds its shape perfectly, and it doesn't seem to break or tear. Now we can take our bow out, now that we have all of our loops contained. And we can just simply wrap it around the bow and then do one final twist tie on the back. So now that I've wrapped it around the bow, we can take our wire and tie our bow together. So I'm going to tie it at least twice. Since we're doing a tree topper and we really don't want this bow to come apart, I'll tie it 3 times just for added security. And now that I'm covered in glitter, we can start fluffing our bow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run my fingers through the loops. And as you can see, it's wired ribbon. We do have a length of ribbon, and no matter which ribbon you really use, when you're creating loops this big, they will sag. But once you place it against the tree and use the branches on the tree to to prop up your ribbon, it holds perfectly. So no matter how thin your ribbon really is, when making a tree topper, you do have to compensate for such large loops. It's going to naturally want to go downhill. So just run your fingers through the loops, pull them apart. How's this looking so far, you guys? Give some likes. Or some wow faces. Those used to be my absolute favorite face for Facebook Lives.
We have a couple people want to know what kind of wire it is.
So this is Bowdabra wire, and we will have the links in the comment section if you're interested in purchasing this wire. So I'm just holding the base of the bow and separating all of my loops. And you do want to give them a little bit of life, so kind of open them up so that they're not so narrow. And if anything, I think these don't necessarily just have to be for trees. You could also place these on your staircase, going down your stairs. You could have these on your outside lights. These would also work on large presents, just kind of having a large bow in the middle of it. So this bow, I definitely figure for a 6 to 6.5 foot tree, you could definitely add this size and then start placing some ornaments around it. And if that's something you guys would like to see in the future, let me know as well. But isn't that bow grand and beautiful and very traditional? So you're going to constantly be fluffing, and that's something that we all do, and I encourage you guys to do it if you don't do it. Even when you place it on your tree, I still come back pretty much every day and adjust it. But here we have a very simple tree topper that is larger than my head. Can I use a pipe cleaner instead of the wire? The bow would be too big. You certainly can. I would definitely recommend tripling up on your pipe cleaner, so make sure you wrap them around each other. Or you could use the wire. You just really need about 6 to 8 inches of stem because of wire or pipe cleaner, because you are going to come back in and place your tree branches inside the loops to prop them up and adjust them. But this is what we have. Show some hearts if you love bows. Look at that. And it took us no time at all. How long did that take? A few minutes to create a beautiful bow. Awesome. I'm glad you guys loved that. So now what we're going to do is a couple traditional bows. So we'll place this right here. And again, I am covered right now in glitter. But I really like this ribbon. And if you guys are like me, let me know in the comment section if you prefer kind of traditional colors versus something more whimsical. But our next bow is going to be a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more fun. So we're going to do this now. And we're going to probably just do a small wreath bow. So I know a lot of you guys wanted to see kind of what I do at Christmas time using traditional ribbons. So we're going to be creating a bow using this. So I'm going to start off with my wire. Cut a length of the wire off. Came in late. How long are the loops? You can cut them anywhere from 12 to 18 inches long. These ones were cut a little bit smaller, so I figured these are about 12-inch loops or so. And we created about a 24-inch bow in total. Of course, if you make it 18-inch loops, the bow will be about 36 inches, give or take, if you divide it by 2, because you're wrapping the ribbon around. So it's about 9-inch loops on either side.
How would you attach the bow to the tree?
So I would attach the pipe cleaner to the very tip of the tree, or the wire to the top of the tree, and then I would actually take the branches and kind of shape them within the loops to kind of prop up the bow. Keep in mind, your tree's not going to go through inclement weather. It's not outside, so you just really kind of have to prop it up so that it stays and it doesn't move, just for the time being of Christmas. Of course, if you have kids, you want to be a little bit more stable with the bow, but we don't have any kids in my household. Plus our tree is 12 feet tall, so I don't think anybody's going to climb the tree. But now what we're doing is kind of a funky bow. So I placed the tail in. Now we're creating a single loop. But I think this ribbon's really cute too. And you'll notice that this ribbon has a reindeer on it. So now we're going to come back in with another ribbon. And our other ribbon is this one from Sam's Club. A 50-yard spool of 1.5-inch ribbon. And it has little reindeers. I think this is the cutest little ribbon right here.
What is the best ribbon for outside?
Any of these ribbons we're using are perfectly fine outdoors. They last just as well as any other ribbon. Sam's Club ribbons that we use always outside, and it holds up perfectly fine. So now that we have 2 tails on this side and 1 loop up here, we're going to alternate it so that our tails are on the opposing side.
Betty would like to know where you can get the bow maker.
So you can pick this up on Amazon. We have links for it in the comments section if you're interested in purchasing the Bowdabra. So we placed 1 of each. We're going to come back in with more. So this is going to be a very bright and cheery bow. Lots of people want to win. Awesome. I mean, who can resist free ribbon? So just continue alternating with this ribbon. Until you have a pretty full bow. So bows are really easy to do, you guys. I know a lot of you guys may have not done a bow before, or kind of nervous, or have had a difficult time. My biggest suggestion for you is just practice. So Sam's Club ribbon is the perfect ribbon to practice on because it's only $7 for 50 yards. If you're nervous about making a bow, definitely stay away from more expensive ribbons. And typically whatever I use is not expensive as well. I don't really use crazy expensive ribbons. So $7 for 50 yards, you can easily get a lot of bows like this out of it.
What are the size of the loops, Nick?
So the loops are about 5.5 inches wide, and the tails are about 12 inches long. Truth be told, the loop size should be pretty much the same. It doesn't have to be exact. Tail sizes, you could have some 4 inches, some 8 inches. It doesn't make a difference with the tails. If anything, I encourage you to make them all different lengths, because all in all, once the bow is complete, it kind of adds a cool touch to it. It makes it a little bit more fun having them all different lengths. This particular bow style, I wouldn't call it traditional, so it's always nice to kind of mix it up and have different styles on it. So we're going to do 1 more loop. Cut off my tails, and now what we can do is take our Bowdabra wire, push our ribbon down. It also comes with the wand for the Bowdabra. I typically always just push it down. You can certainly use the wand. It comes in handy. Basically what it does is just us pushing the ribbon down as well. I am a ribbon hoarder. I think that makes 2 of us. is it worth getting the large and small of the Bowdabra? So you can get either size you want. I believe the small is more so for hair bows and smaller bows. This one is the large, I believe, and if anything, I'm not creating hair bows, so this size works perfectly fine for me. But if you're creating smaller bows as kind of decorations for little figures and for hair, the small works. But either one is basically the same, just different sizes. So now I'm going to tie it a couple times, and then we can fluff this one as well. Okay, so now that we have a bunch of loops and a bunch of tails, we'll move our Bowdabra to the side. I'm just holding my bow kind of in the middle, and then we can run our fingers through all of the ribbon, get out any creases, and make sure that it's all facing the direction we want. So by a show of hands, who's learning something new today? Hopefully I inspired you or taught you how to make a bow. I mean, bow making really makes or breaks a wreath, especially if you're adding one to a wreath. So if a bow is perfect, your wreath looks perfect. And my biggest suggestion when making bows is to make sure you get out any creases. You could have the most beautiful ribbon in the world, and if your ribbon kind of looks like that, the bow just kind of loses its beauty when that happens. So just run your fingers through it, get on any creases, pull your tails down, and fluff. Okay. So our next step, which I'm not going to do on camera, I'll just show you guys a few examples so you guys can do it off camera. I don't want to bore you guys too much, but our next step for this particular bow is to dovetail. So the most important part when dovetailing is to do it, if we're going to be honest. I really think it enhances your wreath or your bow. In this case, the ribbon already has so much print on it, so you can't really notice it all that well. But once you start making more and more bows and more wreaths, you definitely notice when people take the extra step and dovetail. So all I've done is I folded my ribbon in half, and I'm cutting from the middle out towards the wired edge at an angle, and that creates a nice little point. So even for the reindeer one, we just fold it in half and cut from the middle out towards the wired edge, and that's how you get that nice dovetail. So this is how this bow looks. Give some hearts if you think that's pretty. Something different. This would look great, again, on railings, on a wreath. And real quick, let me just show you what it would look like on a wreath. So here we just have an evergreen form. You can just take your bow, wire it into your wreath. Of course, I'm just holding it in the back of the wreath. And then this might make it easier for those of you that are just starting out to kind of fluff on top of a sturdy surface. And there we have a very simple and pretty bow. So we're going to do one more bow today, and that's going to be a traditional bow. So we have this 1.5 inch ribbon. This is one of my favorites. I hope I have more of this in my storage because I love this ribbon.
Do you heat seal when you dovetail?
I do not. I do not heat seal. None of the ribbon I've used in the past has ever frayed the edges. If you are using a ribbon, my biggest tip would to not be using that ribbon, just because no matter what you do, it'll just keep fraying. I have picked up a couple rolls that kind of do that over time, and I just throw those rolls out if we're going to be honest, because your ribbon really shouldn't be fraying all that much around here. So now what we're going to do is create a traditional bow, like I said. So I'm just going to take a couple tails. So I'll cut these about 12 to 18 inches long, so that we have about 12 to 18 inch tails. Fold it in the middle, place it down into our Bowdabra like that, and now we can begin creating loops. So I'm just going to start by scrunching it inside of our Bowdabra and continuing our twisting motion with our hands right where it meets. So I'm just twisting it so that the side we don't want showing is on the surface. And you may not be able to notice all that well on camera, but there's definitely a shiny side to this with glitter and a side that doesn't have any shine to it. So that's the importance with twisting it.
Can the second bow be done by hand, and how?
Yeah, you certainly can be creating bows by hand, but this device makes it so much more easier. So I'm just going to continue alternating. And like I said before, the more loops you have, the more full your bow is going to be. And that isn't necessarily the best case for every wreath. We do a lot of designs where I like my bows to be a little bit more natural and a little bit more insignificant. So for those bows, we do less loops, and then we come back in with additional textures like picks and decorations and kind of spruce up our bow a little bit more. So now we've added about 4 or 5 loops to either side. We're going to just add one more just for the fun of it. Snip off our ribbon.
Can you use zip ties on these bows?
You certainly can. I typically, whenever I make bows, I've never actually used zip ties for them. Because then you got to attach them some way or another, whether it's to a pipe cleaner or not. So I either just use pipe cleaners or the Bowdabra wire. Because then you still got to secure it some way or another. And the zip tie you got to snip off. So that just seems like it's an added step for me. But of course, if you are making bows like that, by all means you can. Whatever works the best for you. That's the beauty of what we're doing, is that there's no particular way to do it right, as long as the outcome's beautiful. So don't feel as though just because I use my Bowdabra in this certain way, that does not mean you have to. Whatever works for your hands, as long as the final product is beautiful. So now I'm just going to secure our bow by tying it off a couple times.
And we have the winner. Congratulations, Lally Baez.
Congratulations! So Bowdabra will be in contact with you, and you will be getting a free roll of ribbon. That's awesome. I mean, who doesn't love free ribbon? I mean, look at how quick and simple that bow was. This is the perfect bow for craft fairs, for wreaths, swags, lanterns, lampposts, anything. Such a simple, easy bow, and I think this is one of the most elegant styles possible. I absolutely love working this in, and I make hundreds of these at Christmas time to place on my fresh wreaths. This is the go-to bow for me. And real quick, let me just show you guys what it looks like on top of a wreath. So I'm just gonna wire it in real quick so you guys can see. And as I said, we constantly fluff, and I encourage you guys to do so as well. It really helps make your bows beautiful. But here's our finished bow and our final bow. So in that half hour, we made this simple traditional bow for a wreath, which is one of my favorite bows of all time. This is all a wreath really needs if you're going to be placing these outdoors. I think this is just elegant and simple and beautiful. Our next bow is right here, a funky bow using 2 different ribbons with lots of tails and loops. This is definitely the most fun bow out of all of them. And then lastly, our third and final bow is the tree topper. So as I said, you just need to customize to whatever tree you have. If you have a pencil tree, you definitely don't want to make a bow too large. You know, the slim trees that they have, which is typically the trees I have in my home. If you have a large tree with a large base, you might want to do something larger. It just depends on your tree. But this is definitely a great starting point, and this bow would work perfect for a 5.5 to 6.5 foot tree. And what you could do is make 2 of these. If we can hold it up, you can make 2 of these and place them back to back on the top of your tree and have tails coming down or have decorative picks woven into the ribbon. But I want to thank you guys for your time. I want to thank you guys for watching me, and I want to thank Bowdabra for having me as a guest tonight. We will be live again within Bowdabra. So if you're interested in these videos, and if you'd like to see more of these videos, let us know. We always love to hear your feedback. And when you guys share these videos, it helps us inspire more and more people. So if you have any ideas as to what you'd like to see me create in the future, drop them down in the comments section. And with each live we do, you will be entered in to win either scrunchy ribbon or another form of ribbon. So again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye, everyone.